Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. I think we're all concerned about a lot of the various policies that our government's involved in, but what about the energy policy? Just what's going on with that? Well, I am delighted to have back with us Daniel Weber. He is the founder of the Association of Mature American Citizens, AMAC. And by the way, Daniel, I want you to take a few moments and tell us about AMAC, because you guys are really offering a lot of great things there. And give us an update. By the way, good to see you again.
Great to see you too, Perry. Well, AMAC, we're the conservative alternative to AARP. And unlike their group, which used to be a marvelous group, but unfortunately they took a sharp turn to the left in the last 20 years, we actually have concrete proposals to fix things. We don't just complain. We come out with good, positive ideas.
All right. So people that want to join AMAC, what do they do, Daniel?
Just go to our website, amac.us. That's amac.us, and you'll learn a lot about us and see all the activity we have on the Hill and the things we stand for. And basically, conservatives aren't being represented by ARP, and that's our job.
All right. Well, let me encourage you folks. This organization is doing a marvelous job, and believe me, I think they represent you in the way that you want to be represented. So let me encourage you to go to amac.us and check it out and join them. Well, Daniel, what is our energy policy? What is any of our policies these days?
Unfortunately, we've got a lack of leadership, and it seems to come from the White House. The president has not approved the pipeline. He's not approved increases in gas lines. We are one of the richest nations in the world with our energy reserves. They recently discovered huge reserves in California, of all places. And it's just amazing the opportunities we have in the various states. And there's two problems. First of all, AMAC feels American families deserve lower energy costs. We think that Americans are paying $1 more a gallon than we have to. If the president would just unleash some of our capabilities, take the regulations away from the oil companies. I'm not saying don't oversee them, don't get me wrong, but he's actually hampering it. And I can't understand, other than it's helping countries like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, and which those countries certainly are not our friends.
We know for a fact now by research and other means that we have enough energy within our own borders that we could be self-sufficient, and there is just nothing going on in that area to take advantage of that, let alone the pipeline. And
you know what? People say, oh, you conservatives, you just want to put pollutions in the air. Well, guess what? Our president, unfortunately, has banned any use of 30 million federal acres, not for oil drilling, not for gas drilling, but for solar or wind. He's only made available 600,000 acres out of 300 million acres in our federal property for solar and wind. And we think that is ridiculous. It seems like he's a hypocrite. They just built a 5 square mile solar plant in New Mexico, which will give enough power for 70,000 homes. And here we have 30 million acres, and he won't let private enterprise use that for wind or solar. So he's, on one hand, he's saying, oh, we're polluting the air. On the other hand, he wouldn't even let us expand wind and solar. So there's something wrong here. And I don't know what it is other than lack of leadership.
Daniel, do you think in time, given on the political side of things, and in the end it's all political, but going into this midterm election, that they're going to have to go ahead with the pipeline just to show some kind of movement, because just on jobs alone?
Well, that's crazy. If you want to create 40,000 jobs, then you build the XL pipeline. And yes, I think there very well may be political pressure. But you know, it's interesting. We have the Olympics going on. Right. And you know Lindsey Vonn, our downhill skater? Well, she was hurt and she couldn't participate. And you know who they were going to use to replace her?
Yeah.
Barack Obama. Barack Obama. You know why? He's going downhill faster than anybody. But seriously, he just doesn't have leadership. And, you know, he's golfed 162 rounds. And, you know, it takes 3 or 4 hours to play a round of golf, plus prepping, getting to the course. And all that time, he could be spending on things like getting jobs for teenagers. And there's so many things that are being done incorrectly. And I just think AMAC's job, and we are getting great reception from Congress and the senators, even on both sides of the aisle. So we just need more members. We have 1.1 million members now. Yeah. When we have 5 million, they're really going to sit up and pay attention to us.
Yeah, and let me again encourage you to go to amac.us, check out and join. Anybody out there, Daniel, that has a plausible energy policy that you like?
Well, yeah, I like a couple of the plans that are out there. There's several different organizations that are out for wind plants. I also would like to see better technical research done on cleaning up coal. We can filter coal much better than we used to in the past. And I think the cost of energy has gone up to a certain point. If we send a man on the moon. You mean to tell me we can't find a way of cleaning up coal? We have such tremendous coal reserves. I don't understand why we don't find a way to filter that out. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there are ways. It would involve the government, like atomic energy, the way we invented the A-bomb, a massive project, private enterprise government saying, let's find a way to clean coal and use it, because then we would be the richest nation in the world. Instead of paying Saudi Arabia and Venezuela $100 billion a year of our money goes to them. You know what they do with it? They buy property in America. So we're selling our wealth. We're giving away our wealth to foreign countries.
What do you think about the American Energy Renaissance Act that Ted Cruz has put forth?
It's a good act. It's got 4 different parts that make a lot of sense. One key part is the XL pipeline. Mm-hmm. Ted Cruz also favors the gas. That's been neglected. Refineries, one of the reasons we don't have a lot of new refineries, other than the regulations making it so difficult, is refineries are powered by natural gas. So if we had better pipelines for natural gas, because that's how they refine. They use natural gas to refine the oil. And Cruz is right on line with that. And again, now here you have a young fellow with leadership. Yeah. And AMAC applauds that.
Crude oil hit over $103 a barrel today. What can we do to really bring gas prices down?
As I said, we got to unleash the American enterprise. The oil companies want to drill. They keep delaying the leases offshore, and it's crazy. And it's really like a concert. In my opinion, and AMAC feels that we've got to find a way to clean coal, do more fracking, because that's something like 800,000 drills have been done with fracking, no leaks. Right. Where the problem is when they clean up the water after they do the fracking, but that can be controlled. We've had no contaminated groundwater, despite some film that Hollywood produced. The groundwater has not been contaminated. So we got to do fracking, we got to do more oil, more gas, and of course, solar and wind. All right.
Let me encourage our viewers and listeners, you may want to check out AMAC. Now, we're talking today about the United States energy policy, but Daniel, you guys get involved in everything, right?
Yeah, we got a great plan to save Social Security. We actually think we can save Social Security, okay. And we got a plan approved. If they go to our website, they'll read about it.
Okay, and you can join amac.us. Thanks, my friend, for giving us a few moments of your time. Keep up the good work, pal.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, theDove.us.
All right, we're back, and earlier I had the opportunity to talk to Brad Mattis. Now, Brad Mattis heads up Life Issues, and you hear that on the Dove radio. And he's come up with a new television program, which, by the way, we are working on to get on the Dove. It's called Facing Life Head On. It's a Emmy award-winning television program, and we hope to have it on the Dove TV fairly soon. But the discussion I had with Brad is it possible, has the time come, will we see it, where Roe versus Wade may be overturned? Well, he thinks the evidence is clearly on our side. So joins me to talk to Brad Mattis. Well, today we have the honor of talking to somebody that you hear a lot on the Dove TV. We have Brad Mattis with us, and he hosts Life Issues program that you hear on the Dove radio. So we're delighted to Skype him in today on the television side of things. He's CEO of Life Issues Institute, and he's also host of the Emmy award-winning television program Facing Life Head On. So Brad, thank you, my friend, for letting us have some of your time.
Well, thanks, Perry. I'm happy to be with you.
Good to see you. Hey, how did you get involved in the pro-life movement?
Well, I grew up in Billings, Montana, not terribly far from you guys, and I did a report my senior year in high school. It was a persuasive speech thing. We took a poll of the class before the speech. It was about 50-50. I used Dr. Wilkie's materials back then, which was a slide set and brochures. Did my presentation, took a poll afterwards, and it was unanimous for life. So I learned early on that education is really the foundation on which you build political and legislative victories.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Well, here we are, 40-some-odd years later in this cause, and give us your assessment. Where are we today? Are we gaining on this?
Oh, yes. We've been making slow, steady progress all these 42 years, 41 years, I guess, in counting. And we have made substantial gains. Roe versus Wade is on a collision course with modern science and technology. Ultrasound has been a window to the womb that millions of Americans have used to look in and see their unborn child. I have a coffee mug and a mouse pad with my granddaughter's picture before she was born. And then you multiply that times millions of times, and you have a majority of Americans who understand life is in the womb. Those are beautiful children, and they should be protected.
Well, we're seeing the numbers begin to turn and go in the right direction, and it appears that more and more exposure to what Planned Parenthood is all about is taking place.
Absolutely. Those numbers are going down at an excruciatingly slow pace, but they are going down. They've gone down actually about a third, or 32%, since they peaked in about 1980. So we're talking about a substantial number of babies who have been saved, and not to mention the mothers and fathers spared the horrible emotional trauma that abortion often brings.
You know, in the state of Oregon, I hope you are aware, if not, I'll let you know that we're now involved in a petition drive to amend our Constitution to stop taxpayer-funded abortions in the state of Oregon. As we speak, our tax dollars are killing 11 babies a day in this state, and we're the least restricted state in the union, but we're trying hard to change that.
Yeah, well, that's a tough state, as you know. It's churched by population, which has an effect on our issue. But I think that's a good place to start, Perry. It's a good first step. A lot of people there in Oregon who may be pro-abortion still don't want their tax dollars used to fund it. Because we see in America, 54% of women who become pregnant did so and depended upon abortion as their form of birth control. So, you know, Americans just don't support that logic, and they're swinging to our side. For about the third year in a row now, national polling has shown that a majority self-identify as pro-life versus pro-choice.
How is your program, your television program, helping in this cause?
Well, it's helping in that we have, at the Institute, have always wanted to present a calm, rash, and factual presentation on abortion and the life issues. So the program, when we started, we wanted to target women in childbearing age who weren't necessarily with us on abortion. It's not a preachy format. It's more of a 2020 format. We present individuals who are facing life head-on, as the title says, making difficult choices, and then we're showing the outcome, whether positive or negative. And then we match that really emotional, heart-tugging story with an expert in the field so that there's an educational process, but they really don't know it.
That's wonderful. And I think we're looking at trying to get it here on the Dove TV, and hopefully we can accomplish that. Brad, let me ask you this. How has the Obama administration's policy on this issue affected the cause? It seems like he's very pro-abortion.
Well, to say he's pro-abortion is a gross understatement, Perry. He's the most pro-abortion president in the history of our nation. And the people he's putting into power and bureaucracy and judgeships and everywhere are radically pro-abortion individuals, and it's being affected. But at the same time, in spite of what's happening in Washington, the states are electing pro-life legislatures and governors. Mm-hmm. And in the last 3 years, we've passed more pro-life legislation than in the last previous decade combined. So the other side realizes we're making these gains, and they understand that Roe versus Wade is living on borrowed time.
Well, we also know that this past Valentine's Day, the head of Planned Parenthood said, give an abortion for Valentine's Day. I mean, they're no longer in the closet. They're just right out in the open.
Oh, well, they pick every holiday and every crisis to promote abortion. While we're celebrating the birth of our Savior, they're saying have choice on earth instead of what the angel said, saying peace on earth. With the horrific earthquake in Haiti, the situation in Syria, our answer every time is not to get those people food and water and clothing and shelter, but to get them condoms and abortion. Abortion is the forefront of everything that they do.
Let's go back to Roe versus Wade just for a minute, Brad. And you think we're heading for this collision course. How do you think this is going to happen? How do you think we're going to get Roe versus Wade overturned?
Well, I think it'll happen, Perry, in bits and pieces, one step at a time. We're passing legislation, for instance, to stop abortion after 20 weeks or 5 months because the baby can feel pain. We know the baby can feel pain before that, but that 5-month period is a time that Americans can get their heads around. And polling shows that a majority of women support that legislation, even more so than men. So as we pass these pieces of legislation that requires ultrasound be shown to women so that they're informed and empowered to make educated choices, that they provide parental consent for girls, minors, getting abortions, that we don't fund it with our tax dollars. Little pieces here and there, and they're all adding up.
Wow, that's great. Hey, listen, you're like me, you do a lot of interviews on your show. Let me know some that maybe have really impacted you.
Oh, gee, there's so many, but there's one that stands out. Teresa Ipoletti, she is from Indiana, and her parents he was in the military over in Korea, and a nun found this baby and wrapped her in a newspaper and rushed her to the hospital. They were called then to come in and take her, and they adopted her. What happened was that they aborted her, but she lived. Mm. She deals with some physical and mental issues, disabilities, but she is such a beautiful reminder of life, and this child escaped abortion, and she's here for a reason. So talking to her, I mentioned to her, I said, this interview is one I'll never forget. And she slyly said, do you say that to all your guests?
Oh, wow.
So, but no, she's been one that I remembered very well. I like to do a lot of programs too on individuals with Down syndrome. I have a real place in my heart for them. I want Americans to understand these are individuals with such blessings they provide blessings to everyone around them.
Right.
And so we know that 90% of them, if diagnosed prenatally, are aborted and killed. So our goal is to show them for what a joy they are.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, Brad, how can people support you and what you do and get involved?
Well, they can go to our website at lifeissues.org, lifeissues.org. They can donate. And we've got a ton of information there. Anything from cloning to euthanasia and everything in between. So if they want information on the life issues, it's there. We don't have what they're looking for. They can call us and we'll find it.
All right. Brad, thanks for what you do, buddy. God bless you. And we're honored to carry your radio program and looking forward to getting Facing Life Head-On program on the Dove TV.
That'll be great. We look forward to it, Perry.
All right, well, really powerful guy and really passionate about what he does. Well, hey, I got a question for you. What is the real state of our economy? You hear all these numbers? Who and what can you believe? Well, our next guest is going to give us some good, solid answers, and we'll be right back with that.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market. But at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, every day we talk about the economy and just what is going on with it and who can you believe and what numbers are really real. I am really honored to have back with us today Daniel Celia. He's the CEO and president of Financial Issues Stewardship Ministries. He's worked for about 35 years as an entrepreneur and a businessman. He's owned his own business for 25 years and managed over $600 million. Perhaps you picked up some of his radio broadcasts because he is a board member and with his partnership with American Family Association. And he's now heard on over 300 stations, which has on over 300 stations across the nation. But today we want to talk to Daniel about the true state of the economy. Nice to see you, my friend.
Perry, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you. Well, I have to tell you, these numbers that are flying around out there, it just doesn't seem to be as good as everybody thinks it is. I don't want to be a pessimist, but how bad is it?
Well, we don't have to be a pessimist, or we just have to look at the numbers, and the numbers aren't good. You know, they try desperately to put a good face on some bad numbers. People have become accustomed, Perry, to looking at the stock market and think that is reflective of what's going on in the economy. It isn't. They're two very separate things. And there used to be a day when the fundamentals of the economy, employment, poverty rate, wages, production rates, all those kinds of things were good for the stock market. That's how it's supposed to be. Well, that hasn't been the case since 2007, and the numbers aren't good. Just the numbers that we got out today we see the first-time unemployment claims today that come out every week, and those filing for first-time unemployments, and the headline is, well, they're down 3,000. But when you dig a little deep, you see that long-term unemployment, those that have been collecting unemployment benefits for more than 4 months, it's up 37,000, and we are still at 3 million of those long-term, or 3 million of those people, and these are people collecting unemployment now, not those that are unemployed that are not collecting unemployment. Is still hanging around that 3 million mark. It hasn't budged since 2009. So the numbers aren't good. We look at consumer prices. They came out today. This does not include the two things that we use most of, energy and food. And that's up 0.1%. So people see that and they say, well, that's good. We're still not seeing much inflation. Well, the fact of the matter is, year over year, That number is 1.6%, which is still not reflective of real inflation, in my opinion. But here's the problem that we miss in these numbers. It also came out today that wage growth is up 0.4% in that same time period, which means that we're still very much in a deflationary mode as far as our wages go. It's 1.2% down just this month. So that is not good. We're at 1973 levels for our wages. And this economy, Perry, I know it is from a technical standpoint, but this economy is not in a recovery and has not been in a recovery.
All right. How vulnerable are we, Daniel? Because it feels this is a house of cards and that the stock market is in a bubble. If what you are saying is true, and I believe that it is, then all of these other numbers sooner or later are going to erupt. And what will that mean?
Well, it's going to mean something worse than the last recession that we saw. It's going to be a much harder fall this time. And we cannot keep up the pace of debt, money printing, and inflation, because we are seeing inflation. When wage growth is deteriorating, it has to come to a head. The question is, and it will, Perry, make no mistake about it. Now, whether it is this year, this quarter, next year, remains to be seen. But I would advise people that are viewing your program today that, look, if you're going to err on the side of caution. And let's assume that it's going to happen in the next 6 or 8 months and prepare for it. But it is going to have to burst. The bubble is going to burst. It has to. There's just no way we can maintain the pace of spending and debt without any real productivity in the economy.
Secretary Celia said yesterday that there is just no hard evidence that Obamacare is taking away jobs. What do you say about that? Well,
I say tell that to the 4 hospitals in Georgia that closed so far. Another one closed this week in relationship to Obamacare. Say that to the 26 states that are suffering from Medicaid, and we are going to see more and more hospitals closing. That's just one sector of the economy. And say that to the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, that again this week has put out numbers saying that we are going to lose jobs this week. It was talking about minimum wage. Last week, it said we're going to lose jobs directly as a result of Obamacare. So you can't use the CBO and say how great they are when it benefits your cause, and say they don't know what they're talking about when it's making your cause look pretty bad. So she's just totally wrong. We should all expect her to defend a program that she is very much involved in and has endorsed. So we shouldn't expect anything less. But it's wrong. I don't know what numbers she is looking at, but she's wrong. The fact of it is impacting the economy and jobs.
Daniel, I know on your show you talk about this a lot, but Christians now believers are beginning to feel the pressure of this in many ways. Maybe they're wrapped up in the problem of unemployment. Maybe they sense that something is going to collapse. I mean, there's a lot of fear and pressure out there, and the believers are beginning to sense this. How do you help them to maintain a financial balance with spiritual security?
Well, one of the things that I just talked about this morning in my second hour and with a caller. And, you know, look, first of all, all of us believers need to get to a place where we are honoring God with what money he has blessed us with. Whether it's a lot or a little is irrelevant. And what I mean by that is, as we are investing, we should be looking at biblically sound investments. We cannot support abortion with our money. because of certain mutual funds we're in, or pornography, or so many other things that would be offensive to God. This is his money, and he's entrusting us to be good stewards of it. And that would be the first place to start. The other thing is that I try to tell people is, look, we cannot get caught up in this worldly view that we've got to make all the money we can on our money when things are good. What we need to do is have a mindset of preservation of what God has given us. Now, you know, Perry, I know, our viewers know, we're not called to bury our talents in the sand, and that's not what I'm talking about. But we're also not called to take risk at any cost in order to grow our money, because we have a sense of worship for our money and the growth of it. We need to be cautious. There's nothing wrong with having 50% of our money out of the markets, out of investments, and have it in cash, so that when the downturn happens, not if, but when the downturn happens, we've preserved a significant portion, while if I am wrong and the markets continue to go up, we have 50% of it working for us. And we cannot adopt this idea that we are going to be as greedy, for lack of better, and doing anything that we can do to grow what God has given us. Again, we're not to bury it in the sand, but we have to take precautions and be cautious about where we go and what we do with it. We shouldn't be buying into all the fear-mongering and conspiracy theories, but at the same time, we shouldn't be buying into the irrational enthusiasm that's going on either. We have to have a balance.
What would you say to believers? Because you probably have seen the cycles I have in managing a ministry, that it certainly reflects the economy. But there's an interesting twist to all of this. Believers, when they get into tough times, sense the values of ministry and begin to support them more, seemingly in a downturn. Can you add to that?
Well, you know what, Perry, I've been on a rant over this for 2 days on my radio program.
Well, I didn't mean to hit your nerve on that.
Yesterday, I had to apologize to my listeners and ask them not to send me all the bad emails that I get from people that think I'm being too harsh. I did get a lot of emails, but a lot of them thanking me for the rebuke. And so here's my theory. I had this discussion with someone from Gallup some years ago. I believe that Christendom is going to be bankrupt in 30 years. I believe that because we have raised up generations of people that have no concept of giving, how God's people are to do God's work here, that if we want to keep the church doors open, we've got to support it. We've got to give to that church. We have to do those things. And we're losing that. And I think, frankly, as more fear sets in, what I am noticing, it seems as though we are losing more and more of that. I'm getting conversations and phone calls and emails from people that are saying, oh, market's up. I got to make all I can while I can make it, and they're laying aside the notion that we've got to release some of it and continue to give. People call me, Perry, still today, every day. They call and somebody will say, I'm starting out, I'm trying to save. I'm just torn between, do I tithe? Do I continue my giving? I can't afford it. And I always tell people, don't rob yourself of the incredible worship that giving is, number one. That's your biggest mistake you could make. So in the midst of your saving and trying to get by, we've got to continue to worship God with this thing that we hold very precious to us by giving some of it up and worshiping God with it and using it for his work. The great work of the ministries of Dove TV and other ministries and your church to make sure that the truth can be proclaimed along with the gospel. And I think that when we get in these rougher times, we sometimes feel as though we've got to hunker down with every dollar. And I'm very concerned about it. I'm very concerned about the state of Christendom. We need to be motivating people that their priorities as a instrument of God here on earth has to be to make sure that in times like these, that God's work stays intact and fully funded more now than at any other time in our nation's history.
Have we over materialized giving, Daniel? In other words, we've connected it to materialism instead of giving as an act of worship, which then results in other ways that God takes care of you. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a big bank account. He may return it to you in good health. I mean, you know the scenario there, but it appears that we have, in Christendom, we have made giving a result of materialism. Something fell through the cracks there, the miracle of God taking care of you.
Well, I think, number one, the prosperity preaching has exacerbated that problem as far as some things falling through the cracks. I said yesterday, what part of laying up our blessings in heaven and our riches in heaven don't we get? And I said, when I said that, I'm not making a case that we should be giving because of the treasures in heaven that we're laying up, though certainly that's important. But that we should be giving because we are going to get a seat at the master's table, and we're not to be concerned with what the master is serving us at that seat. And we do get caught up. My wife and I want to lay blessings up in heaven, but at the grateful attitude that we're going to get a seat. We're going to get a seat in heaven at the master's table. I do believe that you hit the nail on the head, Perry, that we're
Okay, I think we've had a little bit of okay, are you there? Okay, sorry about that. We had a little bit of a Skype problem there. Let me encourage you to go to Daniel's site. It's financialissues.org. Check out the book, The Fear of Money, and check out his radio program, financialissues.org. Daniel Celia, he's CEO and president of Financial Issues Stewardship Ministries. You also could Google that. Daniel, I'm sorry for the connection. If you still hear me, at least audio, we appreciate you being on the program with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Well, as you know, or maybe you don't know, that our Oregon legislature voted in annual sessions, and during the even years, like 2014, they go into what they call special session for about 35 days or so. Well, that's the case. They're about halfway through that now, and with us is our good friend, Dave Dotterrer. He is an interesting guy because he's been appointed by the Republican caucus in the House and in the Senate to be the kind of like the budget liaison between the two, and he just happens to be running for state senator. Hi, Dave. How you doing, friend?
I'm doing great. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Well, what's happening? Anything happening on the budget, or has everything else gotten in its way?
No, actually not. They're still moving forward on the budget. I would say that you're starting to see a winding down. There's discussions about that. In fact, they may be the goal is to try and finish by the end of next week, which would be less than the 35 days. And so you are seeing that some winding down. And what you're also seeing as this works its way through, and we've talked about this in the past, is you see the difference between the dreamers and the realists. Mm-hmm. The realists are the ones that say, this is a short session and you really can't get that much done. So let's just look at those tweaks and everything. And also, again, because citizen participation is greatly reduced. 1 hour notices are on the docket for changes and things like that. So for people to react, for the people to be involved is shortchanged. I believe shortchanged. So I think that's where you're seeing things go right now.
All right. So, just do you think when you look back on these special sessions during the even years, that they may even consider cutting them down so that they don't get crowded with bills that'll never see the light of day?
Well, that's some of the discussion. I mean, for the first time, I've heard a couple of discussions around the building of people who say, maybe we ought to go back to the Oregon people and say, do we really need to do these? And so there was that discussion. I don't know where that's going to go anywhere, but here's kind of an intriguing idea that I heard also discussed, and that is that you amend the Constitution to say that any bill passed during this short session takes a supermajority. In other words, look, if we're tweaking something, changing some little thing to make it better, it really ought to be a supermajority vote, and we'll move on. And what that would do would clear out a lot of these more controversial and more complex bills that come in front of the legislature during the short session. So I just find that to be a rather intriguing idea that people ought to think about.
Well, it's telling me that you're evaluating the productivity of these sessions, and is it necessary to be there that long?
Yes, that's right. But again, there's people who now, this is the second time they've done this since it was passed by the people, and there's people who are starting to say, well, you know what? Was this really the right thing to do now that we've done it a couple of times? So I think you're going to start to see discussions about that. And again, how it gets changed, does it get shortened? Does it get, do you go to the supermajority idea? Do you do away with the sessions?
Yeah.
I think those ideas ought to be back on the table now that you've tried it.
All right, sounds good. All right, let's get into a few issues that are there. Any movement on the gun bill?
Nope. Still been sidetracked into one of the committees, and don't know what's going to happen with it.
All right.
So that's where that one is.
You think it's DOA?
Don't know. You never know.
Too early.
This is also the concern. Is all these last minute pieces. Where you say, okay, so get sidetracked off into this one particular committee that stays in place until the end of the session, and literally things can come back out again with an hour notice.
All right.
So yeah,
we'll keep an eye on it. What happened to what about the opt-out bill for marijuana sales?
That one, let's see, that one made it across the floor of the Senate unanimously, which was that local jurisdictions can apply what are reasonable regulations, but they can't that doesn't give them the authority to outright ban it. See, we're kind of waffle wording that a little bit. And I know there's a lot of people who did vote for it because it was the best they could do in this short session, and it's better than nothing. But I know there was a lot of people who wanted the opt-out, the full opt-out, that just wasn't going to fly. So we'll see what happens when it gets over to the House side. That's where it is right now.
Cover Oregon. What's happening with that? I mean, as you well know now, Congressman Walden, along with Dennis Richmond, has called for a federal audit. This thing is extremely embarrassing. A lot of money. You got auditors. Let's see. You got auditors and engineers auditing engineers and auditors.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty interesting. And in fact, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I just had some discussions with some people. Because here's what actually we're being told on the record in committee is that, of course, we're spending almost $250,000 on this study that was hired by the governor to look at his program, and those folks are auditing and going around and taking a look at it. Well, before that is made public, that study is going to go over to the Department of Justice, and they're going to redact things out of it. Now, they promise us they're only going to redact those items that would be considered proprietary business information for the various for the companies that worked on this, and that's all they're going to redact. And my comment to folks is, wait a minute, given that we've botched the oversight so badly here in the legislature, wouldn't it make sense for somebody from the legislature to go over to the Department of Justice, look at the unredacted version, and just make sure that we're not seeing something redacted that is, how should I say, political, or is that that is damning? You know, just to make sure that everybody can say, okay, you know, a neutral third party went over and looked at this. So I think that's something that needs to be done.
Is there a request for a refund for the company that botched the website?
I have not seen that, and I've heard from some folks that the way they wrote the contract, it would be darn hard to go ahead and get any money back from them. Although they have withheld some money, but again, that's hearsay. So, but at any rate, that's one of the things I'm hearing. It's going to be difficult because again, that's the way they wrote the contract as a time and materials contract. You know, so they gave the time and the materials. You didn't give them a deliverable. Well,
geez, what a capitalistic idea.
I hire you to build my house, but I do it. You don't have to deliver a house to me. You just have to do time and materials.
Well, it's stacked up there on your lawn. You build the house. Yeah.
It doesn't look like anything like I wanted, but you know what? I work.
Oh, this is crazy. Anything else out there, Dave? We only got about 2 minutes. Anything else you see brewing?
You know, again, I am concerned about, as usual, and this happens at the end of every session, whether it's a short session or a long session. I am concerned about things that, again, that we don't know about, that are, you know, bills that are buried in committees. And the other thing that really does concern me back on the budget idea is I'm seeing discussions about what ought to be tweaked in the budget and everything like that. But what I'm seeing is this consistent wording that says, well, what we really need to do, it isn't a matter of whether we need to give this agency the additional money. What we need to do is fit this into the overall budget adjustment in the omnibus bill. Well, only a few people see that. That is a very, that stays within a very, very small circle. So at the end of the day, although there will be some input, in the end, the budget tweaks will be decided by just a couple, 3, 4 people, which is not right, and it'll come flying out of the committee, and people will, just like they did at the end of the last session, people will have an hour to look at it. Who knows what's in it? And then boom, they'll pass it through the committee and out across the floor, and then we'll all go home. And that just concerns me. It's a wrong way to do things.
Yeah.
I've heard no discussions, or very limited discussions, about, so what do people think about when we tweak the budget? Should we emphasize this, or you know, what are our priorities?
Right. Is the governor being seen?
You know what? That's interesting. That's a good question. I haven't seen him around. No. I don't know this will shock you. He doesn't check in with me, but given who I work for. But at any rate, I haven't heard his name discussed very much during these discussions, and so, you know, that's true. I don't think he's very visible in this.
Wow, interesting. Thanks, Dave, for what you do. Thanks for being a hawk up there. Keep up the good work. We'll check in, okay?
All right. Take care.
All right. God bless. All right. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.